The early morning sun cast a pale glow over the shoreline as volunteers scoured the sand for debris. Among discarded soda cans and plastic wrappers, a slender glass bottle glinted at Mariah's feet. She knelt and pressed sandy fingers against the cork, prying it free with a soft paw. Inside, an aged parchment curled against the glass, mottled with salt stains and jagged tears. Her heart pounded as she unfurled the brittle map, tracing intricate inked lines that led beyond familiar coves to a marked X. "This can't be real," she whispered, voice trembling against the crash of distant waves. The other volunteers paused, drawn by Mariah's hushed tone, their chatter dying away as they gathered closer. Dr. Hassan, the team's coordinator, approached, brow furrowed in curiosity. "What have you found?" he asked, kneeling beside her. Maria's fingers hovered over the map, as if afraid to disturb its secrets. "Something extraordinary," she answered, eyes wide with wonder. A chill wind swept across the beach, carrying the salty scent of promise and peril. In that moment, the cleanup mission transformed from an act of service into the threshold of a discovery that would unravel history and risk everything they held dear. As Maria stood, map in hand, a hush fell over the cleanup crew. Dr. Hassan's voice steadied the moment. "This chart may point to a shipwreck lost for centuries." Volunteers exchanged incredulous glances, their morning task eclipsed by promise. The parchment's ink detailed jagged coastlines and a small inlet beyond the rocky headland. Everyone's gaze shifted toward a distant cove, where the tide lapped against weathered stones. The air vibrated with possibility and the scent of brine. Maria drew a deep breath, stepping toward the water's edge. "We need diving gear," she declared, conviction anchoring her tone. Hassan nodded, eyes alight with discovery. "We'll coordinate with the marine team. But first, we secure this map." A collective thrill pulsed through the group as they gathered around a portable table. Plastic crates rattled as volunteers arranged flashlights, cameras, and walkie-talkies. The cleanup bucket was forgotten, replaced by charts and compasses. The morning sunshine reflected off hopeful faces, each person reckoning with the magnitude of what they held. A single question echoed across the sands. Could this be the find of a lifetime? Word of the map's discovery rippled through the coastal town by midday. Local fishermen paused their nets to gape as Maria and Hassan displayed the parchment in the marina's loading dock. Barnacled boats bobbed in turquoise water under a cloudless sky, gulls crying overhead. Townsfolk gathered at wooden railings, phones snapping images of the ancient chart. Hassan traced a finger along the inked inlet, while Maria translated scrawled annotations in broken Spanish. "La marea baja revelará la entrada secreta," she read, voice low with certainty. The crowd leaned closer, catching each syllable. A hush fell as she spoke the translation. "Low tide reveals the secret entrance." Murmurs spread among the onlookers, and a young boy pointed toward tide pools near the craggy shore. Maria's eyes flicked to the town clock. 2 hours until low tide. Volunteers exchanged determined looks. The cleanup mission had transformed into a full-scale expedition. Suitcases and diving gear were fetched from trucks. Cameras clicked faster than the gulls overhead. The promise of submerged treasure electrified the midday air. 2 hours later, the tide receded to expose a narrow channel lined with jagged rocks. Maria, Hassan, and 2 volunteer divers donned wetsuits and adjusting masks, while spotlights on boats hummed to life. The sun hovered at its zenith, casting harsh shadows that danced across the reef. Maria's heart thrummed as she watched the inlet yaw open like a hidden doorway. Hassan checked his depth gauge and nodded. "We descend in 3, he said, voice calm but electric. A hush fell as each volunteer checked fins and oxygen tanks. The diesel engine's growl faded as they slipped into the crystalline water. Below the surface, beams of light pierced the azure depths, illuminating schools of iridescent fish. Maria's fingertips brushed cold rock as she followed Hassan toward a dim cavern. Her lungs filled with practiced breaths, every exhale sending bubbles toward the sunlit surface. The map's red deeks seemed to glow inside her mind as she swam into shadow. Inside the cavern, ancient timbers lay half-buried in silt, encrusted with coral and seaweed. Maria's flashlight beam revealed a curved prow and iron fittings etched with ornate scrollwork. Tiny crustaceans scuttled across tarnished brass. She signaled Hassan, heart soaring at the sight. He trained his light on a twisted rudder, then ascended slightly to examine a hull breach revealing chests sealed by heavy chains. "This is the San Rafael," he breathed, recalling legend of a galleon lost in a storm 3 centuries ago. Maria's fingers brushed barnacle-clad wood as she imagined its last voyage. The cavern's water glowed faintly, lighting the wreck in ghostly hues. Above, divers hovered in reverent silence, aware they were touching history. Outside, waves lapped against the cavern's mouth, oblivious to the secrets housed within. Maria gazed at the wreck's bow, determination bright in her eyes. She would bring this story back to the world. A gentle swell rocked the research vessel as Maria, a determined 26-year-old woman, and Dr. Hassan, a focused 45-year-old man, studied underwater photographs, spread across a salt-streaked table. Hassan tapped a glossy print. "These timbers match 18th-century Spanish galleons," he said, voice steady against the hum of engines. Maria traced a jagged hull outline in marker ink, tension tightening her chest beneath her wetsuit. Around them, 2 volunteer divers secured gear, eyes flicking between images and the sea's restless horizon. The afternoon sun cast sharp reflections on stainless steel railings, and clouds scudded across a pale blue sky. In the wheelhouse, radio static crackled as the captain relayed tidal schedules. Every word amplified the urgency pulsing through the crew. Maria inhaled brine-tinged air and met Hassan's gaze. "We must dive again at first light," she said, conviction anchoring her tone. Waves slapped the hull as the boat pitched, and somewhere below, the wreck awaited its next revelation. That evening in the coastal town's pale blue museum hall, Maria and Hassan presented battered wooden fragments and brass fittings under glass display cases. The museum director, a stern 50-year-old woman in tailored jacket, circled the artifacts. "Provenance is crucial," she said, voice echoing in vaulted ceilings. Maria held her breath as she described the wreck's location with measured confidence. Rows of patrons leaned forward, cameras flashing like distant lightning. Outside, lanterns lit cobblestone streets beneath a starless sky, and the scent of salt and oil drifted through open windows. Hassan exchanged a wary glance with Maria as the director's assistant scribbled notes, fingers tapping a clipboard in silent calculation. "We'll need full documentation before any excavation permit," the director concluded. Maria nodded, the weight of bureaucratic tides already stirring rebellion in her chest. Late into the night, Maria and Hassan pored over dusty town archives in a lantern-lit study lined with oak shelves. Maria's fingers glided over brittle journals dating back 3 centuries. Hassan leaned close, reading faded Spanish script aloud. "Capitana Leonora's galleon vanished near these reefs in 1723, he said, voice hushed. Maria's brow furrowed as she cross-referenced charts with the map's red XX. Rodent-chewed ledgers lay open, and a cold draft whispered through a cracked window pane. Outside, a lone streetlight cast elongated shadows across cobblestones slick with recent rain. Maria straightened, voice trembling with revelation. "There are records of 2 previous salvage attempts that ended in tragedy," she said. Hassan inhaled, heart pounding at the thought of sunken secrets and untold risks. Dawn's pale light filtered through the cavern entrance as Maria, Hassan, and 2 divers surfaced with test samples sealed in waterproof cases. Maria climbed the rocky slope, boots crunching on damp stones. Hassan followed, hooded torch still strapped to his chest. Suddenly, a black-clad figure emerged from fog rolling off the sea. He trained a camera's long lens on their hull, voice clipped and challenging. "I'm Jonas Reyes, maritime salvage expert. That wreck belongs under my permit." Maria stepped forward, chest tight with defiance. "We hold the only authentic map," she said, tone unwavering. Reyes smirked. wind tousling his dark hair, expression cold as iron. "Maps change hands," he said, extending a leather-bound journal. The tide lapped impatiently below, and tension crackled like electricity across wet rocks. Back aboard the research vessel, Maria convened the volunteer crew under a slate-gray sky. Charts and permits were spread across the deck table in sharp order. Hassan conferred with the Marine Operations Officer over radio frequencies. Maria addressed the team, voice steady. "Tomorrow at first light we dive again, but Mateo Reyes has applied for a rival permit. We must proceed under legal counsel." A ripple of unease passed through the group as rain began to patter on the deck. Diver equipment clanked in unison, punctuating the moment. Hassan met Maria's gaze, concern etched in his eyes. "We'll need our own permit filed by midnight," he said. Maria nodded, determination igniting within her. Above, thunder rumbled across churning waters, heralding the storm to come. The clock on the municipal filing office ticked past 11 as Maria, a determined 26-year-old woman, rushed through fluorescent-lit aisles of paperwork. Her heart pounded against the pressing weight of time as she scanned permit forms, stamped with bureaucratic red ink. Dr. Hassan, a focused 45-year-old man, hovered at her side, voice hushed but steady. "Check Section 14A for salvage rights." Maria's fingers trembled over the line requiring coordinates, but her steady breath anchored her resolve. Outside, rain pattered against grimy windows and distant thunder rumbled like the restless sea. A stern clerk in a tailored gray suit tapped a pen impatiently, eyes flicking from Maria's application to his watch. Maria slid a leather-bound map and charts across the counter, voice clear. "We request immediate approval for an archaeological dive at first light." Lightning flashed beyond the glass, illuminating the clerk's skeptical expression. With a final signature, he stamped the permit, sliding it back with reluctant authority. Maria exhaled, relief and triumph coursing through her as Hassan offered a proud nod. Before dawn's pale glow, Maria and Hassan boarded the research vessel under slate-gray skies. The sea moaned against the hull as volunteer divers checked tanks and masks. Maria held the approved permit in one gloved hand and gripped the rail with the other, eyes fixed on the storm-lashed horizon. Hassan consulted his depth gauge by lantern light, voice low. "Visibility will be poor. Stay close." The crew moved with solemn precision, each breath fogging their mask lenses. Above, gulls cried in the chill wind and spray lashed the deck in sharp bursts. Maria's pulse steadied as she recalled the map's promise beneath these brooding waves. Thunder rumbled, echoing through the rigging, as the vessel slipped from the dock into churning waters. Every creak of wood and hiss of engine underscored the fragile line between discovery and disaster. Midway to the dive site, the engine shuddered and cut to a flat silence, plunging the crew into chaotic alarm. Maria's heart leapt as she gripped the rail, rain stinging her cheeks. Hassan shouted over the wind, "Check the engine room now." Two deckhands in dark wetsuits scurried below, their boots echoing on steel grating. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the vessel listing as waves crashed against its side. Maria clamped the permit to her chest, voice resolute. "We can't turn back." Hassan signaled to the captain through clenched teeth, "Restart that generator." Below, sparks flew from exposed wiring as a diver risked a hand to rewire circuits. The storm's fury moaned through open portholes. Maria laced her fingers together, determined to press on despite the rising chaos. As the vessel neared the wreck site, the storm intensified into a howl of wind and rain. Maria and Hassan secured harnesses against the railing as waves towered over the deck, foam flying like shattered glass. Hassan yelled, "We dive now!" through a gale that clawed at their masks. Volunteer divers clipped to safety lines, hearts hammering and cinch with the vessel's violent heaves. Maria's voice steadied in her comms, "Descend on my mark." Below deck, the dive platform flooded as the gangway swung like a pendulum. Maria counted down, feeling adrenaline sharpen her senses. A massive swell lifted the boat, then dumped it into a trough, plunging them toward the abyss. Each breath she took echoed with purpose and fear. Above, Lightning illuminated the roiling sea in brief, ghostly flashes. Through the pounding surf, Maria and Hassan plunged into the cold abyss, their dive lights carving through murky water. The harness cables strained as currents tugged them toward the cavernous wreck entrance. Suddenly, a volunteer diver's tether snapped, and she was dragged sideways by an unseen force. Maria's pulse raced as she kicked toward the diver, hand reaching through swirling silt. Hassan illuminated the diver's panicked eyes, voice urgent in her earpiece. "Hold on, I'm coming." Maria clamped onto the diver's arm, muscles burning as she fought the current's pull. Above, the vessel groaned, trapped in the trough of a monstrous wave. Maria guided the diver back to the safety line, every stroke a testament to willpower. She surfaced moments later, chest heaving, triumphant relief flooding her veins as Hassan hauled them onto the platform. The storm's roar faded against the diver's shaky sob of gratitude. Dawn's first light pierced the storm-scarred clouds as Maria, a resolute 26-year-old woman, surveyed the cavern mouth from a rocky ledge above. Waves pounded the reef, spraying mist across her dark hair and wetsuit. Dr. Hassan, a determined 45-year-old man, joined her, voice steady. "Conditions have eased. We have 1 hour before the tide turns." Maria's heart hammered against the weight of the permit in her gloved hand. Behind them, 2 volunteer divers secured flashlights to their harnesses and adjusted their oxygen tanks. Each face was lit by grim determination and rising adrenaline. Overhead gulls circled in the pale sky, their calls drowned by crashing surf. Maria knelt and pressed a fingertip to the cave's rim, feeling the cool stone's ancient pulse. "That map led us here," she said, eyes burning with purpose. Hassan laid a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we finish what we started." A low roar of surf echoed through the cavern, as if granting its consent. Maria rose, chest tight with resolve, and signaled the team forward into the yawning darkness beyond. Moments later, Maria and Hassan slipped beneath churning waters, light slicing through swirling silt. The cavern mouth yawned like a secret throat, and the divers followed in tight formation. Maria's pulse raced as she guided them along jagged timbers encrusted with coral. Each breath in her regulator hissed in her ears, syncing with the muffled crash of waves overhead. Hassan's beam revealed a broken mast stump and a tangle of iron chains. He signaled Maria, thumbs up, and she traced the map's red ixi in her mind. Water-worn carvings on a submerged beam caught her eye, intricate scrollwork that matched the map's legend. A volunteer diver's hand brushed aside sand to reveal a rusted plaque etched with Spanish letters. Maria finned closer, heart pounding. "San Rafael, Año 1723, she mouthed. Hassan's light trembled as he captured the inscription. The cavern's darkness pressed in around them, alive with centuries of silence. Maria pressed a gloved fist to her chest, awed by the moment's gravity. They were the first to witness this ship's secret in 3 centuries. Back on deck under a slate sky, Maria and Hassan examined recovered artifacts on a wet tarp, raindrops glistening on brass fittings. Maria rinsed a tarnished locket in seawater, revealing a faded family crest. Hassan held a broken sextant, its optics clouded, but legible. Volunteer divers huddled nearby, breathless and exhilarated. Maria's voice rang clear across the deck. These items confirmed the San Rafael's final voyage carried treasure and personal effects alike. Hassan nodded, eyes alight. "We've found history and heart." A sudden crack of thunder rattled the rigging as Maria laid the locket beside the sextant. She traced her finger over the crest, imagining the lives entwined with this wreck. The vessel's engines idled, echoing impatience for shelter from the storm. Maria folded her soaked map and tucked it into her jacket. "We prepare for cataloging at the museum," she said. Below, waves whispered against the hull, as though urging them onward. In the museum's dimly lit conservation lab, Maria and Hassan guided technicians as they documented each find. Fluorescent lamps hummed overhead, illuminating trays of coral-encrusted timbers, rusted weaponry, and the family crest locket. Maria recorded detailed notes on a digital tablet, voice calm. Locket engraving matches archival crest and town records. Hassan adjusted his glasses, peering at a brass compass face. The compass housing bears Spanish mint markings from Cadiz, he said. Technicians in white lab coats moved with clinical precision, photographing and labeling artifacts under high-resolution cameras. Through a window, the storm lashed rain against the museum's outer walls. Maria's reflection flickered across glass display cases filled with the San Rafael's relics. She exhaled slowly, the enormity of preserving centuries-old history settling in her chest. Each artifact told a story of loss, adventure, and legacy, stories she was charged to protect. Late that night, Maria stood alone before the museum's main exhibit hall, where a large banner proclaimed San Rafael, the lost galleon. Spotlights highlighted display cases as the storm subsided outside. Hassan approached quietly, voice low. "Tomorrow's press conference will change everything." Maria turned, eyes bright with anticipation and fatigue. "We've honored the ship and its crew," she said, tracing her finger on the glass over the family locket. Hassan nodded, gaze drifting to the empty pedestal, awaiting the rusted plaque. "Now, the world will see." In the hushed hall, the echoes of their journey lingered, each artifact a bridge between past and present. Maria inhaled the cool air, heart swelling with purpose. Outside, the first rays of dawn pierced receding clouds, casting hope across cobblestone streets. She and Hassan exchanged a determined look, ready to share the San Rafael's story with a world unprepared for its revelations. Night draped over the coastal town as Maria, a resilient 26-year-old woman, stepped onto the polished marble stage of the town hall. Behind her, a banner proclaimed San Rafael, unveiling a century's secret. Dr. Hassan, a steadfast 45-year-old man, stood at her side, his gaze steady beneath warm spotlight. Maria's voice rang clear through the hush of hundreds gathered on wooden pews. 3 centuries ago, the San Rafael vanished beneath these very waves, she began, each word measured against the echoing rafters. She recounted the bottle's discovery on a dawn beach cleanup, the map's salt-stained lines, and the divers' perilous descent into shadowed caverns. Murmurs of wonder rippled through the crowd as she described the coral-encrusted timbers and the brass locket bearing a lost family crest. Hassan stepped forward, projecting photos of barnacled artifacts onto the screen behind them. Maria concluded, voice firm yet reverent, "Tonight we honor the past, and tomorrow we chart its future." A single spotlight illuminated the leather-bound map she held aloft, the audience erupting into hushed applause. At dawn's first glow, Maria and Hassan led a team of volunteers down the cobblestone quay to a sleek research catamaran bobbing in glassy water. Maria's fingers brushed frost from the permit clipped at her waist as she marshaled gear under pale salmon skies. Hassan's voice carried over soft lapping tides. "We depart in 10 minutes. Check your seals and gauges." Volunteers nodded, adjusting masks and securing snorkels to their vests. The harbor was still. Gulls perched on painted buoys as fishing nets hung silent from wooden masts. Maria inhaled the briny dawn air, heart steady beneath the weight of expectation. She climbed the ladder to the deck, boots echoing on scuffed planks, her map folded carefully in waterproof casing. The catamaran's engines hummed into life as Hassan initiated the launch sequence. Together they cast off, steering toward the waiting wreck beneath tranquil seas. Mid-morning light warmed the deck as Maria, Hassan, and 3 volunteer divers gathered around the vessel's sonar display. A turquoise blip pulsed on the screen, tracing the contours of the sunken hull. Maria tapped coordinates into the navigation console, voice steady, "Prepare for a deep drop at grid mark 17/3. Hassan reviewed dive logs on a waterproof tablet, confirming depth and current data. The divers checked each other's equipment, masks clicking into place. Sunlight danced across the control panel's chrome edges, and the engine's purr lowered to an expectant hum. Maria met Hassan's gaze and nodded. She clipped the safety line to her harness, breath steady in calm anticipation. "Into history we go," she murmured, stepping onto the dive platform as waves licked at the hull. Below the glassy surface, Maria and Hassan descended through shafts of sunlight into the blue-green abyss. Their lights revealed the San Rafael's bow, timber beams encrusted in coral and seaweed. Hassan signaled, pointing to a jagged hull breach where stolen chests lay half buried in silt. Maria's gloved hand brushed a rusted lock plate, stamped with a faded crest. She paused to photograph the marking, voice echoing in her comms. "Record the plate. This confirms our earlier find." The water's silence enveloped them, broken only by distant creaks as the wreck settled into centuries-old repose. A school of silvery fish scattered at their approach, currents dancing around broken timbers. Maria's eyes shone with triumph and reverence as she guided Hassan toward a hidden compartment beneath the main deck. Together, they pried open a corroded chest, revealing a trove of jeweled coins glinting faintly in their lights. Back on deck under a midday sun, Maria laid the recovered treasure on a white canvas tarp, each coin's jeweled surface sparkling in bright light. Volunteers stood at attention as she recounted their significance. "These coins span 3 monarchies," she said, picking up a ruby-encrusted doubloon between gloved fingers. Hassan unrolled the leather-bound map beside the artifacts, linking find to legend. Thorn-spent sea lapped gently against the hull as Maria addressed the crew. "Today we've brought lost history to light, proof that perseverance uncovers truth." A gentle breeze stirred the canvas, lifting the map's edges like a beckoning hand. Volunteers murmured, excited agreement, eyes alight with shared triumph. Maria's chest swelled with pride as she captured a final photograph of the tableau, the glinting coins and map united beneath the open sky. Tomorrow, she knew, the world would marvel at what they had achieved together. Maria stood at the museum's grand entrance under a pale dawn sky, her dark hair damp from last night's rain. She clutched the leather-bound map, its edges softened by handling, and inhaled the crisp morning air. Dr. Hassan approached, his salt and pepper beard flecked with dew, voice low. "Today we load artifacts for the international exhibit." Maria's heart swelled as she pictured the San Rafael treasures traveling beyond these walls. Volunteers in exhibition uniforms carried coral-encrusted timbers and jeweled coins on padded carts. The marble lobby's high arches echoed their footsteps and hushed anticipation. A courier in a navy blazer checked inventory against Hassan's digital tablet, tapping items off in sequence. Maria nodded in approval and guided him to the next crate. Light filtered through stained glass windows, casting fragmented color across the gleaming floor. Each artifact's journey had brought them here, from storm-tossed seas to a stage shared with the world's greatest museums. Maria pressed a fingertip to the map's red deeks, one last time whispering, "Your story continues." On board a climate-controlled cargo vessel at mid-morning, Maria oversaw the secure loading of display cases into wooden crates. The sky was steel gray, and the harbor's water lay calm beneath towering cranes. Hassan directed crew members in padded gloves as they wrapped a brass compass housing and locket in acid-free tissue. "I die." Maria spoke into her headset. "Ensure humidity stays below 50%. Her voice carried authority born of sleepless nights spent cataloging every find. Beside her, a logistics officer in a reflective vest checked straps and sealed codes. Freight straps creaked as they tightened around the crates, and the ship's engines rumbled in readiness. Maria's chest tightened with pride and responsibility. These artifacts embodied centuries of human stories. She glanced at Hassan, who offered a reassuring nod. Above them, gulls wheeled against an overcast sky, bearing witness to this fragile convoy into history's next chapter. As the vessel cleared the breakwater by afternoon light, Maria and Hassan convened on the bridge with the captain's log open. The sea stretched in muted blues under a breeze that rippled whitecaps across gentle swells. Hassan traced shipping routes on a nautical chart, voice steady. "We dock at Port Aurelia in 2 days." Maria recorded coordinates and transit times on her digital pad, mindful of exhibit deadlines. The captain, a stoic 50-year-old man in Navy uniform, adjusted throttle levers, engines humming beneath their feet. Maria gestured toward the horizon where low clouds promised rain. "We must avoid rough seas for the crate's safety," she said. Crew members moved confidently around them, attuned to every command. Maria inhaled the salt air deeply, every sense alert to the vessel's rhythm. The San Rafael's legacy traveled within these crates, carried by waves toward a global unveiling. Night fell as Maria reviewed exhibit blueprints in her cabin's soft lamplight. The map lay open atop an oak desk, its parchment edges glowing under a single lead lamp. Hassan entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of steaming tea. "Rest if you can," he said, handing her one. Maria accepted gratefully, voice gentle. "Tomorrow begins the setup at Port Aurelia." She traced a proposed display layout on the blueprint, every line precise. Outside, swells lulled the vessel in a steady cadence that promised a calm crossing. Maria sipped her tea, tasting reassurance and bittersweet anticipation. Each artifact's journey had been fraught with storms, literal and bureaucratic. Now they neared the final stage, sharing history with a world waiting under distant lights. Hassan's silhouette appeared in the cabin doorway, offering silent solidarity. Maria exhaled, determination softening into quiet resolve. She was ready for the final act. At dawn 2 days later, the cargo vessel slipped into Port Aurelia's sheltered bay beneath crystalline skies. Cranes loomed against sunlit cranes and dockworkers guided the crates onto flatbeds. Maria and Hassan wore high-visibility jackets as they inspected each seal code, voice calm and precise. Volunteers formed a guard of honor as the crates rolled by, their wheels glinting on sun-baked pavement. Maria's chest tightened as she watched the convoy depart for the museum wing just across the harbor. Hassan checked his watch, voice soft. "We arrive at 10. The gentle hum of forklifts and seagull cries filled the air, heralding the transition from sea to city. Maria wrapped her arms around the map inside her jacket, feeling its weight and promise. Today, the San Rafael's story moved ashore, ready to take its place in the world's collective memory. Under the golden light of dawn, Rachel Kahn stood at the railing of the survey vessel, her gaze fixed on the jagged silhouette of the ancient hull breaking the surface. Captain Marcus Lee approached with measured steps, his leather jacket creaking as he slid a battered chart across the wet deck. The team held their breath as the submersible's floodlights pierced the emerald depths, unveiling the gaping maw of the sunken brig that had lain hidden for centuries. A hollow groan echoed through the steel hull as the hatch gave way, sending ripples across the glassy sea. Rachel whispered, "This moment has changed everything," her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Each diver's silhouette flickered like ghosts against the cavernous interior as they descended into the watery tomb. Barnacle-encrusted timbers and tattered sails framed their silhouettes like the curtains of a long-forgotten theater. In that silence, broken only by distant sonar pings, the true weight of discovery settled in their chests. Rachel's heart pounded as she placed a gloved hand on the keel, feeling the pulse of history flow beneath her fingertips. Ahead, the outline of a massive chest shimmered, promising both fortune and ruin. Under a pale afternoon sky, the salvage deck thrummed with activity as the divers hoisted the heavy chest above the waves. Rachel Kahn reached for the crane's controls, her fingers hovering as the crate swayed like a pendulum in the sea breeze. She recalled the moment she found the bottle, its glass cool in her palm, the map inside a brittle promise of what lay hidden. Captain Lee barked instructions. "Steady now, hold her level," his voice cutting through the drone of engines. The tapestry-like wood of the chest bore deep grooves from countless voyages, each barnacle and rusted nail telling a story of storms and betrayal. Crew members circled with lamps and towels, preparing to pry open the lid that had sealed secrets for 2 centuries. The ocean's spray scattered like diamonds across coiled ropes and glinting metal as anticipation crackled in the salt-scented air. Rachel steadied her breath, steeling herself for the moment of truth. She pressed a gloved palm against the aged lock and whispered, "Here we honor the past." The echo of her words faded as the chest's lid shifted, revealing treasures wrapped in seaweed and shadow. As dusk settled over the makeshift gallery and the coastal warehouse, Rachel Kahn gazed at the rows of artifacts laid upon long wooden tables. Each object, gleaming coins stamped with faded crests, tarnished navigational instruments, and fragments of painted pottery, spoke of lives lost to time's currents. Historians in tweed jackets murmured excitedly, their lenses clicking as they documented the haul. Rachel recalled the morning she first stepped onto the shore where the bottle had washed up, her mind alight with possibilities she never dared to dream. Captain Lee watched from a corner, his silhouette tall against the amber glow of hanging lanterns, eyes reflecting flickers of torchlight. The hush that fell when the warehouse doors opened to the press was a thunderous moment in itself. "This discovery rewrites maritime history," proclaimed Dr. Elena Cruz, caressing a coin with gloved fingertips. Cameras flashed, capturing Rachel's measured smile as she responded. "It connects us to the souls who built that ship." Amid the hum of voices, she felt the weight of responsibility settle deep in her chest. The chest that had once lain silent beneath the waves now sang a chorus of voices, thought long gone. Later that night in her seaside cottage, Rachel Kahn sat by a weathered oak desk, the glow of tablet screens casting shifting patterns across her thoughtful face. News reports emblazoned headlines like "Lost Treasure Found" and "Woman Who Followed a Bottle" in bold type. She replayed the moment she brushed sand from the bottle's neck, unaware that fate had slipped into her hands. The voice of a news anchor crackled through the speakers, raising questions about ownership and heritage. Rachel's heart tightened as images of the wreck and its cargo danced across the screen. Behind her, family photographs in polished frames watched silently, reminders of a life once simpler. She touched a picture of her late mentor, Professor Ahmed, whose faith in her had sparked the entire expedition. A gust of wind rattled the windowpane, snapping her back to the present. In that hush, a wave of doubt washed over her. Would history see her as a hero or a plunderer? She pressed her palm to the cold glass and whispered, "I did what had to be done," hoping her words could still shape the storm of voices outside. Before dawn, Rachel Kahn returned alone to the shoreline where her journey had begun, the sand cool under her boots, and the moon, a pale witness overhead. She crouched beside a new cluster of pebbles, her gloved fingers tracing the outline of a second weathered bottle half buried in the surf. Inside, a crumpled parchment bore a simple inscription, "The true treasure is the story you carry." Tears blurred her vision as she realized the message had been there all along, hidden beneath layers of greed and expectation. She pressed the note to her heart, feeling her pulse echo the fragile rhythm of the waves. Captain Lee's voice floated in memory, "We dive for what we believe matters," and she understood that worth was measured in more than gold and relics. The horizon bled pink and lavender as dawn approached, the world poised between endings and beginnings. Rachel rose, the note safe in her coat pocket, and let the tide wash away the footprints of doubt. She strode toward the rising sun with shoulders squared and spirit renewed. The ruins beneath the sea had shared their secrets, but the greatest discovery was the courage to live the stories they inspired.